The St. Louis Regional has come and gone, with Travis Tangeman taking the championship with Elder Toguro. If you saw the winner's interview I was able to do during the tournament, you will know that I was very excited about this deck and the way it was designed to win games. We also saw King Ghidorah with great representation into Top Cuts, and I want to talk about the main strategy I saw being implemented there as well, along with some focus attack decks, Amajiki's doing Squid Games, and a handful of different decks trying to overload in different ways, whether it was traditional card pool clearing, stun and gun, or combo focus. While every deck in this top cut had its own uniquenesses, and they all had something familiar, I want to focus on the decks that made it to Grand Finals. Not just because they were statistically the best performing decks, but because I think they both represent the greatest success of strategies we've only seen sparingly in the past. Let's start with the more obvious one, and that is Travis Tangeman's Elder Toguro list. For a more in-depth breakdown, check out his deck profile over on his own channel. Offensively, this deck is pretty one-track minded, right? Make big damage, turn that damage into speed, and hopefully by using Sports Festival Champion, you won't have to reapply all of the damage that you sacrificed to get that speed. We did, however, see that this deck has the range to kill 7-handers even without Sports Festival Champion by putting upwards of 25 damage into a single Twisting Azure Inferno to get the speed and damage necessary to kill a Rodan in one hit. And while a one-hit KO can sound pretty toxic, I doubt this deck was ever firing off on turn 2, and it's far from uninteractable. But outside of getting into an arms race of answers to specific cards, what makes this deck work could be kind of frightening. We all knew, well, okay, at least I knew going into this event that combined firepower was gonna be nutty. But I was definitely focused on the blocking applications of it more so than the offensive applications. Applying it to Twisting Azure Inferno seems like a no-brainer, but the fact that they can sit in your discard pile ready to use at a moment's notice is where things get crushing. Combine that with Elder Toguro's form, and the normal rhythm of the game is thrown completely out of whack. This Elder Toguro deck theoretically doesn't have to draw a single live card in its hand to pop off. It can play the attack from the discard pile, it can remove cards with effects from the stage or the discard pile, and it can play the actions from the discard pile. On top of that, cards like Avoiding Conflict add damage from leaving your deck to the discard pile. I can understand why it would be very frustrating when the rival can have that level of consistency in seeing their combo pieces, but I'm excited for cards like Deception Dagger and Trickster's Blessing to become powerful tech pieces in an ever-adapting format. These cards don't serve as silver bullets by any means, but there are plenty of ways to remove attacks from the game completely, and with only 6 or 7 attacks available in the deck, I would have to assume the Elder Toguros in the future will have to adapt under increased scrutiny. Overall, I'm excited because we've rarely had decks succeed without being able to exhaust the rival with long strings of attacks that force a response before playing some grandiose finishing maneuver. A lot of sideboards feel sort of haphazardly put together already. In the future, it would probably be smart to start tripling and quadrupling down on powerful interactions you're already using as niche answers, but don't want to clunk up your hand with extra copies of uniques or otherwise dead cards that will become, your lifeline against a deck like this in the future. On the flip side, the King Ghidorah list we got to see the most of was efficiently stringing together some powerful moves, and it has some grandiose finishers, but its ability to exhaust your available blocks is greatly accelerated by access to Tri-Gravity Beam. I am a little surprised it's not more present among the 3 Ghidorah decks, but Ghidorah also gets to selectively play attacks from his discard pile, meaning whenever your cards in hand begin to wane, Tri-Gravity Beam is usually accessible to force damage through. Tri-Gravity Beam requiring 2 attacks to be played before it means that King Ghidorah's Enhance also makes it more consistent when you only draw 2 attacks, but one of them is Tri-Gravity Beam. And on the flip side, we saw in a feature match when the rival decides to sell out to block the first 2 attacks to prevent the hand rip from affecting you, King Ghidorah can look for massive punishment attacks like Dragon of the Darkness Flame and True 100% Unleashed. This ability to make you feel damned if you do and damned if you don't is certainly a common hallmark of a powerful deck. Add into that selective blocks like Momo and Overhaul from metagames past, and King Ghidorah is a super well-rounded deck. Maybe the closest thing to a mid-range deck UVS has had for a while, but considering how often I saw them able to simply face tank and, accelerate their card draw and play decent strings, it's definitely on the more aggressive side, in my opinion. While I am not sure how often or fully necessary to Ben's game plan Tri-Gravity Beam was, I know in the past I've fought him on a lot of discard your hand strategies, and I'm happy to see him make a deep run. That being said, I am absolutely terrified of Tri-Gravity Beam becoming ubiquitous on its symbols. I personally can't stand discard strategies or hand rip strategies, and in UVS it seems especially heinous because it prevents you from building more so you can block more, or it prevents you from attacking unless you feel like you can end the game in one go. On the other side of things, because you draw upwards of 5 cards every single turn, it doesn't seem as punishing to get a single card discarded, and almost useless if the rival gets to choose the card. I've been saying discard this whole time, as it's a little bit of a misnomer with Tri-Gravity Beam. It actually removes the card from the game, and that typically functions the same, but it has extra implications against decks that might only play a handful of attacks, and especially against one that can play attacks from their discard pile. I could probably make a whole nother video about the implications of Ghidorah counters versus the Elder Toguro combo deck and all the miniature interactions within those lists, but suffice to say, I found the St. Louis Regional as one of the most interesting, if not most entertaining events in UVS history. All in all, I was very excited to see some things shift up from previous metagames. 2 decks that don't have repeatable stats made grand finals. Okay, Toguro is a fair asterisk on that one, being able to swap the speed and damage of his own attacks repeatedly, but the deck wasn't utilizing the swap to continuously pump stats on a string of attacks, so I think we're going to count it. We had hand rip strategies, we had big slaps and foundation taps, spells and counters. Spells and counters. We even saw some flash attacks almost play spoiler a couple of times during this tournament, and that's the keyword I have my eye on the most. As always, let me know in the comments what strategies you want to see make it into Top Cuts, any strategies you're cooking on, and throw a subscribe or like your boy's way. Every little bit helps.